we're back. Okay, so welcome back to the Lead Pursuit podcast coverage here at Fall In. So we aren't normally historical convention wargamers. You find us at the kind of conventions where, yes, all the stinky 40K and 30K players are, because that's kind of the community we came from. But I have an opportunity to talk to Joby Miller, the convention director for Historicon, about some of the things that are coming up for Historicon, some of the cool offerings they have there, and maybe we'll talk about Lead Pursuit actually showing up and being there. Joby, it's good to have you here.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for joining us. So, Historicon, obviously larger scale than what we've got here at Fall In.
Yeah, a little bit. We're around 2,400 attendees last year.
Awesome. And so when people have seen us walk through the vendor areas and seen us do some camera walkthroughs of all the other game areas, what kind of scale would you say for vendors here at Fall In versus vendors at Historicon?
Historicon, we have about 27,000 square feet set aside for our exhibit.
That's not good for me. That's bad.
Well, you don't have to take it all.
Exactly. I will leave my credit cards at home. Nope, not going to go in there.
That's right. And although we are a historical convention, those 40K gamers, they're more than welcome to come to our show.
Well, so I laughed. So this is one of the good things when you get gamer communities together and you're not separated by on Facebook or on social media and people see games they do or don't want to play. I was walking through a couple of the halls and there is epic scale little 6mm Warhammer stuff. There is science fiction, space gaming, there's American Civil War, there's all kinds of stuff there, and everyone's getting along, and it's such a pleasant change from where we normally live in the world of I don't want to talk about your games, I just want to talk about my games.
We're all here to play games.
Exactly.
And that's what we want to do. And we've really found that the way to attract people or interest people in historical gaming is to bring the games to the show that they're already playing and let them see what else is out there. And more often than not, anybody who comes for a 40K game ends up in a historical game before the end of the show.
Well, and we laugh because that's kind of how we ended up. We had been playing a lot of 30K, Horus Heresy, kind of the high end of that whole Warhammer 40K crowd. Lots of resin miniatures, things like that. And we just took a walk through the vendor hall one day at Adepticon, and we're like, we kind of like World War II airplanes, and so that took us down, doing more historical gaming,
Right.
So it's always good to get a cross-pollination of the different communities in there, because then people see how common the games are, and they're a lot of fun.
And how alike we really are
Absolutely.
as gamers.
Well, we pick on grognards a lot, and we do, but it's also because we come from those backgrounds. I did a lot of Hex Encounter, so I'm accused of always being the grognard of the team. But it's one of those things that when you get people seeing the other games, seeing how they play, and seeing, to be honest, sometimes if there's a high barrier of entry, then go play someone's one-off game where they've showed up with all their armies painted and the terrain is there, and you don't have to worry about, am I going to buy 28mm pike and shot? I'm just going to show up and play in someone's game.
And we try and make sure Historicon has a big mix of that. We'll have a section of our program book that's going to highlight the kid-friendly games, the beginner-friendly games. They're usually shorter, fewer players, easier for somebody who's a little maybe scared of a great big board to step in and learn how to play.
And it's intimidating. So for those of us who would come from the frozen 4x6 foot world of Warhammer 40K, and then you suddenly step into a 20-foot long table with trenches from World War I and all these other things on it, you go, this is going to be a crazy game. And we do pick on the historical teams because some of those games may be a slower pace or take longer because it's a narrative game. It's not a tournament. You're not fixed to a 1-hour window. We always tell the story of seeing one of the other aerial wargamers do the Battle of Ploesti and all the beautiful bombers flying over and all the terrain for the oil fields or for the oil refineries. But in the time we did like a 12-player one round of Blood Red Skies, I think they'd made it like the first flak belt, So people have to understand there's a variety of games you're going to get there.
Right, and a lot of our guys, GMs, the guys who really put out the intricate kind of layouts and stuff, they're at the very least they're amateur historians.
Absolutely.
So they've got a lot of very interesting background information that they're more than willing to share with the players.
And we've talked about that because that's one of the neat things. If you show up and you just want to play a quick competitive game or something one-off, you're going to miss out with some of those people that are subject matter experts. And you're going to miss out sitting down. And yes, for 30 minutes, they're going to tell you about the battle, but you're going to learn a lot about it. And you're going to get to then play a part of history that you may never have had a chance to pick up.
Right, and that's and Historicon we have a war college, which is takes the gaming aspect out of it and just has the interesting historical facts or those kind of topics, just like we have the hobby university, which is our to learn how to paint. So we really try to cover everything about the hobby, so that if you really want it, you can spend as much time or as little time as you want.
So then I have to ask this leading question, because our interaction with our historical wargaming buddies is rarely do they do techniques classes. Rarely do they participate in those kind of things, because grognards being who we are, we tend to think, I know it all. I know how to paint camouflage. What kind of classes do you see in the hobby, section that you all teach up there?
They have a number of beginner classes, but there's quite a few. Like one guy last year had how to create garbage, basically for your train, and it was taking little things and making them into believable. Or
that's awesome.
It's just very, they try and find these little things that won't be common skills that you normally use, but really can spice up the visual on an event.
It's Mike Rafferty. I hope you're listening. Adepticon, historical painting tables. We want them. One of the things we've talked about doing, and we'll talk about here live, is that there are sometimes the historical gamers and historical modelers that think I'm at the top level of my game. I have mastered what I need to do, until they see somebody show them how easy it could be. Like some of the steps we do for aircraft camouflage are multiple layers of brush paint. And Chris, one of the other guys in the podcast, does it all with an airbrush and does it about half the time. And it still looks beautiful because he is using the airplane to mask itself. He's not putting masking tape down where we're painting all these panel lines and stuff. But it's techniques that we would have never tried, except we knew he did that for 40K aircraft. You know?
I saw a video recently, and it's something I had never considered. They were making spears for soldiers, and what they would do is break off the spear that came with the unit and drill a little hole through there, and they would cut the spines off of those bristle brooms, and then stick them in so they'd be flexible and not break and stuff.
Exactly. You don't stab yourself with them anymore.
That is incredible. It never occurred to me to try something like that. So there's all sorts of fantastic.
And I think there is. I think that's something that we just sometimes lose on the historical side, because we are grognards and we are rivet counters and we are detail-oriented people, but we've always got to keep changing our techniques, and we need to keep growing. And so it's good that you all do that. I'm always happy to see whenever anyone has even beginner classes where they say, hey, if you've never used an airbrush, or you don't know how to do brush painting on an airplane, on a tank, on a figure, you don't know how to do faces on historical figures, and all those things. That's good to see.
They try and cover all of that kind of stuff.
Good.
Wide variety.
Good. Well, tell us a little bit about what you've got besides the vendors and the gaming and some of the historical hobby. What are some of the other cool things that go on at Historicon?
Well, we have the flea market, like they
Which
have
is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. I will warn all of you, do not go to the flea market unless you spend money.
Well, sure, right? So we have that, and
so let's talk to people about the flea market, because that's something that every con does it a little bit differently.
Right.
And it's always fascinating to me to go in and to see what's offered. I was coming here to Fall In thinking I'm going to see all historical, and I was walking up to my eyeballs in sci-fi little spaceships, in Warhammer, some beautifully painted Warhammer 40K armies. If you want to buy someone else's army, go to one of the flea markets.
That's where you find that kind of
That's
stuff.
where you find the pre-done army. But it was more than just what I expected, because I thought, okay, it's going to be heavy on people clearing off their Napoleonics army, people clearing off their Civil War army, people clearing out the ships they've done, And
there's some of that. There is some of that. But a lot of it's like extra stuff or leftover stuff.
Yeah.
I bought all this stuff. I thought I was going to get into this. I ended up taking a slight left.
Yeah.
I've got all this stuff left over. It's not big enough to be a thing on its own, so I'm going to take it to the flea market, so somebody else. So that tank you've been looking for that's been out of print for 10 years might just show up.
I found 3 of those. Yeah. So if you're looking for old out-of-print rhinos and predators, go to Wally's basement at Fall In and you'll find them. I'm not going back. I'm not going to go back and buy them. But no, it's a cool thing for even people who dabble in historical gaming that may spend more time in the sci-fi or fantasy world. There's still a lot of options at those places.
Yeah, there are. As much as we are mainly a historical convention, and we will be, because HMGS is a historical organization, there's always room for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's, once again, it's people that are hobby adjacent, that if they're playing
Right.
Flames of War and they're already using those kind of scale vehicles, for them to go play other games and other genres that are similar things. We always laugh because I grew up playing micro armor games.
Yep.
So being a 40K guy, I was always into Epic and the small little 6 mil stuff because it was the same size as my 125th tanks that I had for micro armor. So it's good to get people a chance to see those things, experience the games, maybe be able to buy in an entire army, you know, a lot of times, and say, okay, I've been playing Epic 40K. I want to get into some of the micro armor games. Oh, look, there's people that already have,
Right.
you know, their pre-done army from 20 years ago that they're tired of playing, you know.
That's right, and you'll get a good price on it too,
Yeah.
because some of these armies these guys have invested heavily in.
Yeah.
So if that's not where your income can go, I'm
Starting from scratch, yeah.
yeah. The Wally's Basement, the
Yeah.
flea market, those are the kind of places where you could pick up sometimes an entire army
Awesome.
to play.
So what are we looking at for the schedule of finding out when events and everything are going to start being scheduled and dropping for Historicon? So if someone says, how do I start getting the info for that?
So go to the website.
Right.
We update all our information there. There's conversations on our Facebook group, but they're not always. The first place we're going to update anything is on our website.
Absolutely.
So the hotel room block will be opening on probably in about a month or so.
Okay.
And then in November. This is November. Sorry.
Yeah, time flies when
In
we're
February, we usually open up for our events, for the GMs to submit their events, the tournament guys
Okay.
to submit their tournaments, the exhibitors to start signing up for the show. And then registration will open about a month before the show, because it takes a while to take all those games, schedule them, work out details with the GMs.
Yep.
So we need to give them a little bit of time to do that.
Absolutely. So the dates for Historicon next year, what are we looking at?
We're looking at July. Get me on this.
Yeah.
Well, next year's a leap year.
Yeah,
It had been
exactly.
easy up until now. It's the third week. It's like the 17th
yeah.
through the 20th or something like that.
Okay, excellent. Excellent.
Don't hold me to exactly that.
Third week of July. Oh, and we know we have people that are coming over from the UK that are trying to sync up and do those kind of things. So
There is a
Plan to
page that has the future dates through 2026 on the website already.
if you're not a grognard, don't worry. You can go to HMGS's website and your fingers won't burn. I actually surfed the website and it didn't like send me to, here's where you stinky sci-fi players go to. So no, you can actually find out the dates. And I'll also make the pitch here. If you are a member of other gaming organizations, you know, absolutely HMGS is one of those organizations to be a part of. If you think you're going to go to these events, if you think you're going to participate and get into the historical world, once again, be a part of HMGS. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of information inside the site for members only that's also good. So
Right.
there's a lot of things for those of us that meld between multiple worlds, you know, play in the sci-fi fantasy world and play in the historical world.
And if the website, if you're intimidated for whatever reason with those, director at historicon.org.
Yeah.
This is our last show for this year before Historicon next year. So I'll have time to start, answering
Answering
emails
emails
in a little more timely fashion than I have been.
Yeah, no, that's understood.
now that it's all done. So
Well, awesome. Anything else you want to cover in closing? Any other thoughts or things you want to put out to people?
I don't know. And there's a lot of things to cover.
Exactly.
And
So shoot us your questions. If you don't want to send them direct to the director, send them to Lead Pursuit. We're going to talk to everybody about Historicon. We're going to figure out if and how and where we can plug in, and because we've been talking and like I told you before we hopped on the interview, we always want to make sure we're doing right by the event we're going to. We're not going to it to say, look at us, we're Lead Pursuit, look how cool we are. We want to plug in and we want to showcase games that may or may not be in the forefront. And I laughed because these guys, their naval game is, I had to think about it, General Quarters. General Quarters is actually in a room I never would have walked into. And I walked by, I'm like, hey, they're playing General Quarters in there. So it's interesting for us to get a chance to feature games and to show it off on the stream, and show it off to people walking around. So.
And if you guys are watching this, then already know Lead Pursuit is cool. Tell them you want them to come and cover what's going on.
We
at
didn't have to
Historicon.
pay him to say that.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you being on, Joby. Thanks for being on the stream with us.
Thanks for talking to me for a little
Absolutely.
bit.
We're looking forward to figuring out how we can plug into Historicon. So we'll talk to you over the next couple months and
bet.
see what we can
bet.
all do. All right.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.